All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Keeping Mobile Device Deployments in Scope, Within Budget, and On Time. Two housekeeping points before we get started. The session is being recorded, and you will receive a link over the next few days by email. Secondly, please submit your questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A section, and we will be addressing these towards the end of the webinar. Next slide, please. Regarding optimizing mobile device deployments, we couldn't ask for a better speaker to explore this topic with you. Marco Nielsen has over 25 years of cross-functional experiences in systems architecture, operating systems, hardware, and communications. As the Vice President of Endpoint Solutions for Barcodes Group, Marco brings extensive experience, leadership, and expertise in the development and execution of mobility strategies. He currently leads various strategic workshops across mobility subjects, oversees the deployment of mobility devices for clients of all sizes, and provides relationship management with clients, ensuring the ongoing recognition of value on their mobility investments. Thanks for joining us today, Marco. Please take it away.
No, thank you. Thank you, Edwin. Thanks for everybody for joining. So Edwin said, my name is Marco Nielsen. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about mobile device deployments. Let's jump right into it. So just a quick overview of our agenda for the webinar and the topics we're going to go through. First I'll level set on mobile devices today. I'll go through some of the risks and challenges, and of course, including the all important security aspects as well. I'll go through some real world tips, share some of the solutions I've seen and been involved with. And at the end, we'll round up, open it up for some questions as Edwin just mentioned. So jumping right into it, some quick facts around mobile devices. I think everybody's aware in the last decade or so, we've quickly been using mobile devices as a necessary business need. They're really critical to most companies' business. They drive revenue. And with all that increased functionality around mobile devices, it's really key to get them up and running at all times. And some of the things I'll go through in this webinar, it's really simple to get the devices out to your employees the first day. But how do you scale to support the devices on day number 2? And how do you keep devices up to date with software, devices repaired, and really up to speed with the current technology? So another topic I just mentioned briefly just before is software. I've often seen businesses that have the right hardware, but not perhaps fully gathered all the right requirements to make the software solution really useful for their employees. So another key truth is really to understand your business flow, future roadmap, making sure you map the right hardware and software needs around that. And that's really key to business transformation, from moving from paper-based over to mobile devices. So also what I just mentioned around day 2 support, and something that's really increasingly becoming a gap for a lot of companies out there in this day and age, is really adequate IT technical support. So as you get more devices deployed, how you're going to support those and keep your business up and running. And I'll share some tips and tricks around that, around all these different subjects on the next few slides too. So as most IT departments have really been asked to do more with less, they're stretched. And when I talk to customers pre-COVID, of course, in their offices, I usually ask specific questions. How are you going to deploy a large number of devices with your current staff? And a lot of times they're setting up cubicles and multiple power outlets, boxes everywhere, and they're trying to coordinate the right devices to the right locations for shipping. And there's some risks around that. There's risks around getting the right accessories, power cables. Are they getting configured, or are you forgetting some devices to different locations? And usually a part of that I ask, okay, so after you deploy it, how are you going to support it afterwards? who all the end users are going to call. How are you going to secure remote replacements back and forth and also make sure that they have the right business applications on each device. So a lot of questions is the proper support staffing in place? Who they're going to contact on the IT side when they don't have functional devices, and what's the revenue impacts for downtime? So if the end users can't get things fixed fast enough, what's the revenue impacts to your business overall? And this is a great cartoon, really highlighting some of the excitement that can occur too. So some of the important challenges is really around to the business. So there's a growing need for mobile access. There's also a lot of critical business applications, like I just mentioned, around revenue generating applications. And today, in a typical organization, we see about 60% of devices containing or accessing enterprise data on mobile devices. With this, there's also increased costs. You might have more IT needs, and have they really been planned into the budget? So one thing is to approve all these mobile devices, but making sure your IT staff is up and running and they have the right budgetary needs as well. And with all this enterprise data and accessibility in mobile devices, what's the security risk? With all the, protecting corporate data and network security is definitely key too. And we'll go through that in the next slide. Organizational complexity. This is really around, are you going to deploy this by region, by city, by location? There could be different workflows in each of those areas, depending on how your business is run. So those could all multiply the complexity of it, and making sure that you think about those topics when you deploy devices out. Another really important subject is also standardization. If you're going to give people choices in the number of devices and what kinds, you definitely need to be prepared to really scale up the management of that. Are you going to Apple iOS? Are you going to use Android? Are you going to use both? That could really also add complexity to your support and deployment. And another thing around future growth, often I've talked to customers where they say, okay, we're just going to deploy devices out to this one department, this one business case. But as they see success, they really want to see this multiply throughout the organization, and it quickly gains speed and momentum. And that also goes back to device standardization and streamlining the support necessary. So I mentioned security several times, and it's definitely a big topic for a lot of customers. And diving deeper into this, there are some quick stats with some very key reports that we found. 48% business professionals say that they sacrifice mobile security to meet the business objectives and cutting corners that way. Another 64% said those that are compromised have experienced downtime. It could be malware, there could be other things that really impact them because they have skipped some of these pieces. And then another 52% of organizations said that they had something happen on a remote device. That's really increased from 2019 by 37%. So a lot of organizations feel that mobile devices are the biggest security risk, and that's really what we're seeing too. That cybersecurity is really a top reason for justifying further IT investments in their environments. So it's really important that you look at the security requirements of your organization and put that into your deployment needs and the project plans, and also the budget around it. So deployment tips. So looking at all the stuff I just explained to you, I'll talk about some key takeaways, kind of a roll up of some topics here. So architecture. So you really want to make sure that your mobile project is designed with the right business requirements. Do you really have the right software and hardware that you need for your business? Has all the internal teams been involved? I've seen a lot of successful projects where the projects have really taken a good step back, talked to multiple departments of the organization, really understood what the needs are and how to build success around it. So proper planning is always important. You want to make a pilot. You want to do a testing plan. You want to make sure your employees are trained. So I've seen multiple examples where technology has been forced down. The end user satisfaction is not there, and it might just fail because of that. Not because the hardware and software is not good, but you need to make sure that you really have involved everybody in the company. And also around the technical skill set necessary to do security, to device management, remote upgrades, the whole support piece that I've just kind of gone through in the previous slides. Who's going to own all that? So if you're going to deploy your devices yourself, you also need to make sure you have the right space and time, to really organize. If you're going to take all these boxes, open them up, really think that through, how that's going to work. Do you have a warehouse? Do you have office space? How is that going to happen? And also try to kit with accessories, test devices. And also another aspect is, how are you going to keep track of the devices? You're going to write down all the serial numbers. You're going to have a spreadsheet. How's that going to occur once you get started? And the same thing in the shipping. So if you have a large number of locations and sites, how are you going to manage all the shipping requirements, tracking, if something doesn't show up, if it's delayed, weather, as we're experiencing this week for most of us. So there's a lot of aspects just around shipping too. And then for some companies that have PCI requirements, you do have, if you have a PCI audit, you got to prove who received what serial numbers. So there's a lot of additional aspects of that to think about. And then after deployment, which is kind of the most exciting part of things, it's going to be key to figure out how you're going to support the devices after you deploy them out. And I've seen customers, kind of think, well, okay, yeah, I can handle this. This is fine. And sometimes the success of the whole project can really come down to a standstill. Maybe you didn't test everything out, the software, hardware, connectivity. And they can really be make or break for the whole project. And then most help desks, if you haven't involved them a little bit early on in the project planning, you're definitely going to be forced into it now. So they got to be prepared with the right training, with the right resources, knowledge base articles, extra devices, et cetera, et cetera. And then for escalation, did you buy the OEM warranty package? Will you be able to get repair for your devices? Do you know who to contact with your various vendors? So these are all different aspects to think about. And for a lot of the vendors, some of them do require a little bit more fees to get faster support too. So if you do have business critical needs, you might have to look at that. So with all these topics, I've mentioned a ton of problems. There's definitely some avenues that can help out. Some tips around this is really that service providers, they can remove the risks for a lot of these different issues. They have internal resource that your internal resources can really focus on user experience. Making sure that they're properly taken care of on the software side, that they understand how to use devices in your business, and they can really provide the business value return. And the service provider is really just augmenting your internal IT teams instead. Likewise, third-party service providers, they've already done project plans like this in the past, like I've mentioned. They could also be carrier activations, all the end user supports I've just kind of mentioned. And you could actually, if you need to have a better user experience in the beginning, and then start to pull it back in-house later on if you need to. Usually we see very high need for support in the beginning, and it kind of tapers off afterwards. So there's different avenues to go around that. And then they're agnostic. So if you're going to handle multiple different types of devices from different vendors, they're agnostically able to support that. Likewise, I mentioned with well-documented project plans, the timelines will be really clear, with your stakeholders and others on the milestones, on key outcomes and costs. For a lot of things right now with the supply chain, service providers can really help out and make sure the timing is really setting the right expectations around the timing and the deployment plans. And lastly, something I haven't really approached yet is mobile device management, or MDM. And this is really key to enable remote management and support, both of the software, the hardware, and they can also be able to push down security policies. So that goes back to the security topics. So this is a really key thing to think about. So for Barcodes, we can be one of those service providers. We have a strong TrueSupport offering. And I'll go through this at a very high level around our services at a high level, but we provide provisioning and deployment services. The devices can arrive right out of the box, ready to use. The help desk, the support and repairs that minimizes the mobile workforce, downtime. We can make sure the devices are returned back in end users' hands, fully configured, ready to use. We have some features around reporting and analytics. Why have spreadsheets? We can help you organize all this data, so you can just go to the website and click, and you can see all the data that you need at any time. Likewise with the MDM, the mobile device management, we can help you. We can help keep the devices updated. We can make sure the security policies and Wi-Fi settings, everything else you need is really there and ready to go. And all of this is really encompassed by a lifecycle management process, where we can also have spare pool management. We can overnight new devices to really minimize downtime fully. So I'll dive deeper into the first topic there, provisioning and deployment, for this webinar. So our provisioning and deployment services, you really get out-of-box experience with a whole suite of services that I'll go through here. So project management, like I just mentioned, having a project plan, making sure that the right resources are aligned and communication flow is going back and forth. The configuration, so making sure that all these different settings that you require for your business is really set up and tested and ready to go. Staging and kitting, so this could be accessories, this could be a case around the devices, maybe payment sleds, all the cables, cradles and chargers perhaps, or even mounting on forklifts or any other things that you might need. And then we also see a good chunk of customers asking for asset labels and also documentation. It could be a quick start one-page guide with the devices. And that really gets the end users up and running really quick. Like I mentioned in the website, the portal, you can really have visibility of all your assets, including the tracking and shipping information. So you're not keeping track of that in spreadsheets and trying to hunt down information that you need. So I'll quickly go a little bit further down into each one of these. Project management. So this is a key best practice, like I've mentioned before. Barcodes will assign a resource. That resource will ensure all these different items, the technical information are gathered. This is really key to the other processes. So we know what to configure, what to kit, which accessories, dates and deadlines are met. Like I said, with supply chain issues today, this can really shatter some dates and deadlines, but we can help you with that. We have intimate knowledge of the supply chain through different distributors and vendors directly, so we can help you with that. And then communication. So I've seen a lot of projects, we're broken down communication, there's confusion, and it really breaks down because the information has not been properly communicated. Project coordinator can really help fill those gaps and be a central person to really resolve those gotchas. Shipping, like I just mentioned, is key. Even scrubbing your address lists. Sometimes I've seen problems with addresses being, not correct, or not a wrong zip code, or a digit is missing, and then you can't ship anything out. So those are really business critical for a project. Special labels, like I mentioned, maybe we have separate labels for each box that is shipped out to each site. There could be instructions, there could be all kinds of different scenarios where you might need some specialized labels in the boxes when they go out. So again, all this stuff is really successful to have a good, successful deployment. Configuration, one of the most critical aspects of the deployment is really the end user experience. You definitely want to have the end user experience there. So when they start using the device, they're happy about it. They know what to do with it. It really helps them in their daily job functions. And for a lot of business use cases and employees, this is the very first experience they have with this, is really getting that device for the first time. And again, if you don't have a mobile device solution, this can quickly get out of hand. How are you going to deploy a new version of the software if there's a bug in it in the first week? With an MDM environment, you can really push that down. You can smooth things out without anybody really experiencing any downtime at all. And for a lot of cases, depending on the operating system, additional steps might be necessary to really make it smooth. And in MDM and some of these end user settings and credentials can really be important to be configured on the device. And applications. So I've had some customers in the past where we had to log into their application to really synchronize all the data down the very first time. So at Barcodes, we can help you with that. We can make sure the device has the data it needs to be run for the first time with the end user too. Staging kitting, like I mentioned, this is really, what if you have different locations that have different needs? Maybe you need a different cable length or a different cradle or different scenarios for different sites. And by planning this with the project coordinator, we can make sure that this is all being done to the right locations. There's also pairing. What if you have accessories that are Bluetooth enabled? You want to pair that with the device beforehand. This could also be payment terminals that might be attached to the device, and also managing connectivity. For a lot of use cases outside the four walls, you want to have connectivity for the first time you power the device on, it should work. And there's some complexity with that, and there's some good solutions around that today too. As a labeling, I think I already mentioned, really around getting labels on the device. I've seen some cases where we actually put the phone number on the labels. So the end user, if they don't know who to call, it's right on the device. So there's various different types of stickers that they can really held up to extended use too. So they don't really rub off and have those issues too. Documentation, so adding a quick start guide or some brief information together with the device can really improve satisfaction as well. I think the shipping I've already kind of mentioned before, but taking care of securely packaging the device. For a lot of air freight today, you need specialized specific stickers for the batteries, and also keeping all this delivery confirmation and tracking. That's a big deal once you get started. So to round things out, like I mentioned, we have a protocol that we call TrueView. In here, it really gives you all the visibility needed to really have all this information like I just described. You can see your devices, you can see the current status of the device, if it's in repair. So we have a separate webinar where we really will dive deeper into this. So please keep a lookout for that webinar, and we'll even share more information on that. Inside the portal, like I mentioned, instead of having spreadsheets, our portal also has contracts. So you can see your OEM contracts, what's available, and really have a centralized view on things from the bottom up all the way to the top. So this is a great asset to have and have all this information at your fingertips. And with that, we have a couple more minutes to spare, but we'll open it up for questions.
Hey, thanks, Marco, for your insights. And just a great presentation. So we would like to give the floor to you now and answer any questions that may have come up while you were looking at the slides or listening to Marco. So please add these in the Q&A area. Now, if you would like to explore how to optimize mobile device deployments or our TrueSupport solution, please reach out to Marco or any of the Barcodes group entities listed on the screen. So a question came in, Marco, related to chip shortage, supply chain issues.
Yeah.
How do you keep deployments on time with the issues that are out there today?
I think the number one thing is that it's first come, first serve. So the sooner you can get your orders into the queue of the OEMs and manufacturers and whatnot, the better. So we're already seeing a lot of customers this quarter really bouncing back from last quarter. They really want to get started with projects later this year, and they're putting their orders in. We can also work really closely with our OEM partners and our distributors. In some cases, we have direct access to inventory that we've already purchased as well. So there's some things we can help out with today.
Nice. So it sounds like you can do extensive mobile device deployments. How do you support somebody that just is adding to their fleet by just adding, maybe 10 more to a fleet of 500? How do you support those customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think change management is one of those forgotten words, or a couple words that a lot of people don't really remember. But as we build project plans up, I often see that, oh, well, we just have a new site, or we might have removed a site or move things around. So project changes are very commonplace. But again, once you have a project plan, it's easy to insert things. It's easy to modify because you already have all the details gathered. So you already know how to configure the devices. You're already doing all the base steps. So adding more devices or another location is not that difficult. I think it maybe goes back to supply chain nowadays. Can you actually get more devices, and how long will that impact the project plan? So that might be the hardest part now these days than really the impact to the project plan, I think.
Nice. And then could you dive a little deeper into mobile device management? Like, what is it? What do you offer to support customers in that space?
Yeah, that's a big subject for a lot of people. So we're here, Barcodes, we're agnostic. So if you're already using SOTI or VMware or Microsoft or several other products, we can definitely assist. We can assist at using all the benefits of these platforms that you might have already acquired. Or if you don't already have an MDM solution, we can assist to really talk about the pros and cons, talk about best practices around it, and really help you figure out the MDM that best fits your needs and how to use it. If necessary, we can also augment your teams. We can help you administrate it on your behalf. So there's a lot of options and topics to go through there too.
Great. Yeah, and again, if you would like to have any of these discussions, reach out to Marco directly or any of the companies listed on your screen. So with that,
when we have a whole separate webinar just around MDM too, that really dives deeper into all those topics too.
Yeah, we can definitely make that available. It took place last year and it's still really relevant. So couple of more questions for those that have to go. Feel free to go, but I know that Marco would probably like to answer those questions. So how do you handle the integration of devices with all the standard softwares? Examples, SAP, Concur.
Yes, I mean, that really depends on your deployment. Usually we would gather the requirements necessary that you want on the devices. If these can be pushed down with an MDM solution, that's probably the best practice. That way you can also update them remotely as they change. Or we can sideload them, so we can manually install them if these are private apps, customized apps that you might have, or privately developed apps. Those can also be deployed out. But my recommendation is really to have a clear path of support and making sure you can update these applications. Without updating them, you have a problem later on.
Great. And one more question. Wondering if this is a new service, if TrueSupport is new, but maybe you can touch a little bit, Marco, on if the service has been around for a while, how has it been enhanced recently?
No, it's been I forget how many years it's been around, but it's been around for a number of years. We've been broadening the scope of the services. We now have a full stack of services around it, like I explained, with spare pool management, with the portal piece included into it, and we're continuing to add more services to it as we expand. We can also do other types of devices, printers, RFID and other things. And this is really a all-encompassing kind of view of services that we can provide around that. But contact me offline, and I can help you out further with those topics as well.
Well, thanks, Marco, and thanks to our audience for attending today's webinar. Hopefully it was a useful way of spending half an hour. Love to talk more, but thank you for now, and see you in the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay safe.